Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad.
And greetings, I'm Tyranth.
Tyranth, oh boy. So, the last episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, let me reel it back a bit first, right? I've been a fan of this thing ever since I read the graphic novel years ago. As even the graphic novel was on my bookshelf as a prominent feature, right? And I've been looking forward to it being adapted for ages because it's really, really medieval grounded. It's about knighthood, all that stuff. And I always knew that if they did it right, if they adapted it right, this is going to be brilliant. And that's exactly what they've done.
Yep.
Like, this show is, there is explicit content warning, okay? And I get a bit annoyed with the explicit stuff. But outside of that, the concepts of knighthood, chivalry, masculinity, as well as the medieval grounded aspects of it, it's a joy. Pure, pure joy. Have you seen much of it?
I am waiting. I am a binge watcher, and we've had a discussion, an argument about this. But I am waiting for it to finish out this weekend, and then I will watch all of it.
Oh, you will love it. It is really, really good. But you already know the spoilers, and there'll be some kind of spoilers, not spoilers, in this video, because the 5th episode has the big fight, and this show, like, they've already been going out of their way to do the armor better. It's not perfect, but much better than anything we've seen, really, than in so many things. I'm not saying everything, just a lot, most. But this fight is when they had an opportunity to show some really, like, grounded stuff. And they do that, so much so, I want to break down some of the big moments of a fight scene and explain that what is accurate from a historical perspective, what is iffy, and then I also want to test because one of the things that this fight does so good, armor works. This shouldn't be a high bar.
It shouldn't be, but it really is.
Nowadays.
Especially even in the Game of Thrones verse. I mean,
yes.
Tower of Joy immediately springs to mind.
We see swords getting stabbed through breastplates, like from behind, and other bits of armor, and it's just like that. That is bullcrap.
Yeah.
You can't stab through metal armor, right?
No.
So Game of Thrones itself has been one of the big culprits of this, let alone the very worst culprit in terms of worst armor adaptation and worst depiction of armor's effectiveness, The Witcher Season 1. The scrotum armor.
The ballsack armor, yeah.
It's just like vomit-worthy. And no joke, there is a moment where the Witcher, he has his sword, and is holding his sword on the guy's armor, and he just casually pushes it through the armor like it's tissue paper.
Yep.
So stupid.
All right, where
like,
did you
why even wear armor at that point?
Exactly.
It's doing nothing.
Just wear t-shirt and jeans.
But in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Duncan the Tall is wearing a full chainmail hauberk, and it saves his life multiple times. So much so, we want to show in real life. I've got a real chainmail hauberk, and we're going to show just what this stuff can stop by trying to duplicate some of these hits and injuries.
Now, if you actually want to see like a full exhaustive test on mail, we have a full 40-minute video going through, I think, over 20-something different types of melee weapons, testing it against mail. But
this one is a deep dive focus on the fight scene in episode 5 of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Let's get started. All right, so the scene, or the fight, Trial of Seven, opens up with a lance charge, and it's all from Dunk's point of view. We only see snippets of some of the other hits, but one is important that I want to talk about, because there are, as good as it is, there are things worth talking about, and the first one is one of those things. Dunk gets lanced through the mail. It looks like it's on the side, but then there's another shot that looks like it's more centered. First of all, can a lance get through mail? Yes.
I think the issue is more, if you have a 2-inch hole bust straight through around your stomach region, through the mail, that's just game over.
You're dead.
You die.
In reality, and this is a heroic kind of fictional fantasy, and so people just kind of go with Dunk can just tank it. In reality, they show almost this much penetration of the lance. He pulls it out, and you're seeing it.
It's like a shotgun shot straight to the stomach.
That means you're going to bleed out in 30 seconds.
Oh, it's more like 12.
That is a lethal wound. And in my opinion, they didn't need to go that far. In the graphic novel, he gets hit under the armpit, and it's like that much penetration, it's survivable. Certainly going to sting like a dog.
Yeah, all right, sure.
Survivable, well, debatable.
Your armpits are very vulnerable.
Yeah, depending where and what angle and things, yes. And so, first thing to point out is, like, unfortunately, Dunk would just be dead.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like it would have been just enough to maybe a little bit of penetration, maybe a glance, but maybe a splinter, like a large splinter, not like a little
Like,
tiny
if
one.
it only had this much penetration at the tip and the hole was, like, you know, yay big, it would sting, it would hurt, you would still be out of fight.
The problem is, any penetration like that, there's no... You're done. Like, I'm sorry.
The bleeding is an issue, but they have, they have penetration like this.
And I think the thing is, if he was wearing any sort of plate, then it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
But he's just wearing mail. And like we said, we've tested a lot of mail. And if he's wearing something like a gambeson or just something underneath that is like soft padded kit, busting through that mail, that's your only protection. So once it's through that, you're screwed.
Okay, so that's probably my biggest criticism of the thing. We get into other, and there's some great stuff to talk about. The next blow comes from one of our favourite weapons, Tyranth.
What's that?
It's a flail.
Yeah, yeah.
So here's the thing, though. To try and, I guess, give it some charity, the artwork that shows, you know, knights using flails, they are on horseback. And the argument is that if this... we've talked about, we think it's a garbage weapon, especially in formation, because you can't control everywhere it's swinging and it might hit your opponents. But on horseback, okay, it's going to reduce a lot of hand shock. It's assuming you have room to move around the horse, so you've got room to move swing around the flail. The flail is a more viable weapon on horse than on foot.
Sure.
Okay, and so we can give him that. Now, Dunk gets a big hit right to the side. Let me grab the helmet just because. My helmet is really close to Dunk's. Like, we're talking like really, really close in terms of... But, so Dunk gets a flail hit, bang, right to the side of the face. So much so, it either caves in half of the helmet, doesn't look super caved in though, but it knocked his eye so much that his eye swells shut right from that blow. That is like... knocks him completely off his horse and is seeing stars.
And then we get into the added issue that it doesn't look like there's any padding whatsoever. And this is kind of like, I have this as a criticism in general, because when you actually want to put on a helmet to actually do some sort of battle, your head is so vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And there are lots of different ways that you're going to make sure that your faceplate stays shut, a whole bunch of stuff. You want to make sure that you can't get hit in the neck. It's a whole thing, whereas in all the shows, fantasy shows, they just helmet, actor on, that's it, we're going, we're done.
It's because sometimes...
my helmet got a bit damaged, I'll just take this off so easy.
When they put the helmet on, they want to see the actor's face and hair and stuff, and a wrapped big wad of padding, like a padded coif, looks a bit goofy, and that's why they choose not to do it.
I get it.
But in reality, that is a big issue. The only kind of exception or explanation for it is that the helmets have an internally sewn coif, like a suspension rig. The thing is, though, that is not common.
The other issue is, when you do that, it'll kind of race car your face, like squish it in, like how race car drivers have with motorbike helmets. You can see that there's nothing in there.
Because when you raise the visor...
It's an ultra close-up shot.
It's just helmet and thing. And so, it doesn't actually look like Dunk is wearing padding. And would have there been a case sometime in history where a knight wore a helmet without padding? Of course. But they would have learned quickly if they got hit that that's not a good choice.
Exactly.
But Dunk he's inexperienced, he doesn't have a lot of money.
So what do we talk about when it comes to the prince?
The prince, there is a better explanation for it.
Don't give me that.
There is. And we are going to do a dedicated video testing if the final strike against Baelor Targaryen...
It's probably out by this point.
It's possible. You're right. Depending. Oh, so there we go. We're filming them together, but I think this one's coming out after. So check that out. And all right, so going back to Dunk, getting hit on the side of the head with a flail, possible to do the damage it does, but it needs to have caved in the helmet, and the impact basically needs to be received fully on the eye. So on closer inspection, they do show this side of his visor caved in a bit. And so I reckon, the bang ricocheted might have done the damage. The issue is, if it was actually 2mm thick steel, a regular flail doesn't have enough force to cave in.
They're riding in opposite directions.
Well, there's
so,
that.
like, I think that is a fair point to bring up. My gripe is, he gets hit with the flail, falls off, then get hit with a mace.
Well, then he gets hit with the flail again, and then a rider comes in, which is Maekar, and he's got a mace, and he knocks Dunk on the head with that mace. The worst hit Dunk is, like, outside of the lance, the biggest hit he would have taken was that mace hit from horseback.
Yeah, like that is that's insane, especially when we give it the context of how the fight ends. That is by far
that's actually a bigger, more powerful, especially with the horse momentum, than what Baylor receives at the end.
Like that's a
kill blow even with a helmet.
That's two in the spate of like 30 seconds.
But I mean, like Dunk is a tank, like a mega tank. And if he had a solid enough helmet, I could see someone maybe surviving.
Our heads are very vulnerable. There's a reason why we say you need like padding, and then you need mail, you need coifs, then you need really thick steel, and even then, it's still not a good idea to get hit in the head because our brain, internal damage is.
You saw
insane.
the wind up on that mace hit and everything just.
You're not getting up from that.
A regular person. Dunk is a tank. Maybe.
Sure,
Maybe he could survive.
Sure. What about the 2-inch bore?
That one is too much. The big hole he has.
Tis but a scratch.
Yeah, right. In addition to these kind of deep dives on Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, there is a move that is interesting and deserves to be tested. It's a thrown sword, but not in the technique that gets the best results. So Tyranth and I, we're going to test it to see if we can throw a sword the same way that Arian does and see if we can get it to work, because it's a high-risk maneuver, and that's going to be the exclusive video for this week. So if you want additional deep dive kind of exploring content of this great series, well, all you need to do is become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. And you do that through Patreon, Subscribe, Star, or channel memberships, and that is the very thing that is sustaining us, and you get these awesome exclusive videos. So yeah, let's find out if we can throw a sword like Arian does in Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Cheers, guys.
It's not often I throw swords, that's fun.
It is fun, isn't it? That was a good shot, Tyranth.
Yeah.
So Dunk is down, and I forget his name, comes in with the flail, swings, Dunk dodges, rolls, and then he does something I think is brilliant. He does an actual grapple, jiu-jitsu style takedown. And if you think medieval knights didn't train in grappling,
there's a lot of grappling.
They absolutely did. There's actually treatises about grappling, even in armor. This is 100% historical, and it speaks to a couple of things. Dunk is not the most like expertly trained, but he has been trained by Sir Ireland.
Well,
and
let's put it into context, right? There's a reason why a lot of armored combat might devolve into grappling, is because, well, armor is made to protect you, right? So how do you get through armor? Well, you can smash some blunt objects on it, like we see with the mace and even the flail, which is great, right? But how do you actually kill them, right? Without doing 1,000 hits? Well, if you get into that close quarters, you can half sword, right? Maybe you want to get in between the gaps and get in between the gaps of the armor itself.
Which we see some of that.
And then, if you're in the terrain for it, you can grapple with them, right? Well, and it's really hard to get up when somebody is in full plate or full armor on top of you, especially in a slippery environment. And I think a great example of this is like if you check out, perhaps like Dequiatum's videos, he does a lot of armored combat, and it devolves very quickly into grappling. And when I say devolves, that's not the right kind of word.
It's the tactical, thing. In actual fact, a lot of knightly combat, if they're both armored, right, is them, even if they're wearing halberds, they'll try and get a massive hit in, but as soon as they get close, it becomes like a fight to try and knock the other guy on his ass, pull out a dagger, get him through the eye slits. Yeah. Now, Dunk is down, his opponent is up.
Sorry, just before you continue, I wanted to praise, there is also another movie that does this really well. I think it's called The King, is it?
Oh, yeah, The King.
And in the first opening longsword duel, where they have longswords,
I have a dedicated video on The King.
Yeah, devolves into a grapple, and I think he gets a dagger through the neck, I believe. Just, I thought that's a good
The King,
callback.
The movie did some really good things, but there's some things that big annoyances.
It's called The King, right?
The King, yeah. With like a Charlemagne guy playing Henry. So the fact that this fight scene shows that Dunk is down, he does what looks actually a very trained and expert leg takedown, knocks the guy down, and then they grapple. That is very realistic with
There's a
Nightly
lot of
Combat.
context in this, because you're probably thinking, well, why didn't he just move out of the way? When you wear helmets, depending on the type of helmet and what visor it has, your visibility is very restricted.
They show that too.
Yeah. And so Arian looking down at Dunk, he may not have visibility of his legs or anything like that,
Yes.
so you can't actually just see it, right? That's just one of the limitations of whatever helm you've got, right? Sorry.
And well, they get to the ground, and I think first Arian is on top, but Dunk is just bigger. And Dunk is able to like get leverage, push him over, and he pins him, and he even takes a couple of like shield hits to the head. He can shrug those off. The shield hits didn't have huge.
One of them was, this is one of those things where it's like you need kind of some good neck protection in general. One of those shield hits did look like it went under the helm.
If it got to the neck,
which would definitely put you down.
That would.
Another one.
But then Arian is underneath, and he pulls out a dagger, and he stabs Dunk right in the thigh, right there.
Yeah.
And it goes through the mail.
Yep.
This one is interesting. This is 50-50. It really depends on strength, leverage.
It's possible.
It is possible, but there is such a huge difference between a dagger that has a tip like this compared to a dagger that has a tip like that.
And there is a huge difference between daggers that are actually kind of much more, shall we say, designed for mail, which I assume that's what the type of dagger is.
Like Arian is using a full-on rondel.
Right.
Rondel daggers are made to penetrate mail.
Yeah.
And so he gets a downward thrust into Dunk's thigh. This would be hard to do with a dagger like this.
With these particular daggers, you're not really going to be able to do it that well. The biggest variability is not only the dagger, but it's also going to be the mail type. Flat ring versus round ring actually makes more of a difference than you might think, because of how the rings can either bust and elongate. But that's a little bit more complex, right? I don't think we need to go that far into it. But generally speaking, can you get a dagger through mail? Specifically on the dagger type, yes.
And what I like, though, it's not a lethal blow. The dagger penetrates by about that much into his thigh.
Which is pretty accurate.
It is actually quite accurate. And so the mail still saves his life, but he feels it. So that's going to sting, the hit in the thigh. Arian then, because of the injury, is able to get some leverage, pin Dunk, and then he goes for another stab. And it looked like first it was going to be the armpit, but then when it shows where Dunk stopped it, it was going right underneath the helmet there.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's the death, angle that you go for. Dunk stops it with his hand, straight through.
Does he have gauntlets on?
He has like mitten gauntlets that can flip back.
Okay.
Okay, so I think it works.
Right.
I don't know how much control he would have after that.
Oh, barely any.
He's a tank.
Like, I think what's fair to note is that all of this in motion looks fantastic, looks awesome,
Looks
right?
great.
We're only breaking it down because, like, that's what you're here for, right? But a lot of these hits are like,
A regular guy, you're dead.
you're dead. You're dead from the lance.
Oh,
You're dead
easy.
from the mace hit to the head from the horse. Like, things like that where it's like, maybe you could survive, but not one after the other.
This is like one of those legendary things of a guy getting shot, 8 times and is still walking kind of thing. That does happen. Rare. Have you seen those police ones where they need to unload a full clip?
Usually drugs are involved and stuff.
Yes.
All right, so
Raymond, he's the unsung hero. He's such a Chad. He's a guy, he meets Dunk, friendly with him, they go and eat a couple of times, then they hang out, he gives him a drink, he knows Dunk is a good bloke, and then when Dunk's life is on the line, he steps up and is willing to go in the, he gets knighted and goes in the trial of 7. Raymond is just a legend, and Dunk is now pinned. It's not looking good. He did stop like a death blow with his hand, big injury, and then Raymond comes riding in, and you don't see what he hits with at the ride-in, but as he rides away, you see what he's holding.
It's a sword, yeah.
It's a sword. He not only hits the guy, he knocks the guy off into the air, away.
I thought originally it was like a broken lance,
Yeah.
and that would actually be like
Possible.
100%. I'm like, yep, sure, makes sense. Not with a sword.
A sword?
We're in the Game of Thrones verse. Maybe if it's Valyrian steel, right? Maybe it could.
It's not as it's
But
standard.
for an average standard sword, not only taking that sort of hit and that impact on plate,
You might break the sword.
You're going to break the sword, and it's not going to have that much force to do
Well,
that.
like swords don't have a lot of mass, depending on the type of sword, but most swords, they don't have heaps of mass and even heaps of structure in the blade. If you hit someone really powerfully, even on the side, and so much power to knock them off, you're going to be bending the sword more than knocking them away.
Yeah, which means they're not that thick, which means they're not super indestructible, especially for your average type of blade.
And we're not saying you wouldn't be able to transfer a level of force, and Raymond is on horseback, but what we're saying is it wouldn't be enough force to literally lift the guy's entire...
superhero impact.
It lifts the guy's entire body off of Dunk and knocks him aside.
Now, the reason why I think that would be far more believable, and it just better if it was a lance, is because they're wood, right?
Yes.
They're heavy, dense wood, and if that cracks and breaks, who cares?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot more there to it. With a blade, though, like a sword, that's just not going to happen.
Not gonna happen. But heroic fantasy, this is the embellishment to make it a bit more dynamic, make it feel like it's a big hit. And the moment is that Raymond saves Dunk's life effectively there. Yeah. Raymond is a legend. What they could have done, maybe if it was a really powerful hit to the side of his head and it didn't lift him in the air, just knocked him aside, I could see that knocking someone off.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. But then Dunk gets up and there's like one hit from another ride by, but it doesn't look like it has a lot of impact. And then his opponents, they start to actually get into some sword play now. There is a big hit.
Well, before we even get to the sword play, he gets a couple of stabs in.
That's where we're going to. Because Dunk's back is to him, and he jumps in and gets a pretty sizable hit right in the back with his sword.
Yeah.
Context again.
Not really, to be honest with you. I mean, like maybe a little bit on the blade profile, but you guys probably aren't going to be able to see it on camera, but there might be some darker patches here. Those are specifically from
sword
strikes getting straight through the mail.
But we have seen mail stop sword strikes.
Yes, but it usually comes down to blade geometry. That's why I said it's a little bit more contextual. For example, we used this Blackfire replica in one of the mail testing episodes that I mentioned earlier. Has a really nice, robust thrust and point on it, and that's what we tested with this mail, and it consistently got through.
Well, we'll go like medium effort and just show about like what it takes to get through mail on a similar kind of strike. Probably poked Dunk, and that suck, but he could still stand. He starts to kind of attack Dunk, and he does this weird thing where he comes in for a slash and then literally does a back end slash like this and then attacks again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get away with it.
Spinning with armor, you have armor.
Yeah, I mean, the point, if you're trying to do a hit on one side, it's much quicker to just do that instead of hit, expose your back, and do this weird thing.
That's why I thought he went for a hit and came back over for a thrust.
No, he actually spins his back. It's just kind of the Hollywood thing. Now, in terms of a realistic context, if you could get away with it, right, it is a demoralizing thing. It's like, look, I could just show off, and what are you going to do about it? What is interesting, though, he's landing hits on Dunk, but they're slashes.
Yeah.
And when it comes to slashes...
Specifically on mail, and plate, sure, yeah. They're not really going to do much.
Yeah.
They look cool, so I'm always open for that sort of stuff, because it's just fun to do.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like actually trying to kill them, that's why we kind of went, the grapple is kind of a good option, because you bypass all of this sort of stuff.
And the armor does its job.
Yeah.
Saves his life multiple times. I want to comment briefly on this moment right here. That was actually brilliant. Tyranth and I do talk a bit about that later, but the sword exchange actually begins with Dunk catching Arian's blade right there. First a deflection, trapping it under his arm. Arian counters, smacking his shield into Dunk's face, getting his arm free, and then Dunk slaps him with his open-palmed hand, with so much power that Arian drops to the ground. This was just a brilliant sequence all round, and shows more complexity and sophistication in the combat, adding grappling and even unarmed strikes. Just brilliant. Dunk counters then with some wide, kind of wild swings, but they're showing that he has hell of a lot of power behind it.
Yes. I mean, it's the same criticism for like what we just gave to Arian. If you're going to be swinging against plate, which is even more robust than mail, even Dunk's powerful swings with a regular sword are not going to be able to do that much. Not because Dunk isn't strong, but because a sword just can't impart enough kinetic energy through plate to do enough damage. Unless it's on maybe like an extremity or like an exposed area, like a joint, but chest sort of stuff.
No, chest isn't going to do much, but I've seen more heavier built swords break like analog, collarbones underneath armor and stuff. Like depending where you hit, you can transfer some measure of force with a beefy enough sword.
Right.
But he does push Arian back in these like big strikes, and he's getting knocked around a bit. Arian then actually slips, it looks like. It doesn't look like a strike from Dunk, but he's been pushed so back by Dunk just berserking on him. Arian's, even his shield is getting kind of knocked aside by Dunk, and I can see him getting put on the back foot. He slips, and Dunk takes that as a moment to just breathe. Okay, could he have ended it there? Debatable. There is an opening. There's an opening if he committed to it.
Sure.
But he should be dying, so...
Yeah, and you do get tired.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you've been stabbed multiple times.
Now he's been stabbed multiple times. So, trying to count the injuries. Head hit, thigh hit.
2 head hits.
Oh, yeah, 2 head hits. I actually think 3. 3 head hits. Thigh hit, stab in the back,
Twice.
And and I think, there might have been a second one. The next series of exchanges is... some really interesting sword play. He tries to slash a bit, there's a bit of back and forth, but there's a moment where he just switches up and just like stab, right into Dunk's front. Same context as the stabs before. Like, they could be lethal, the armor could save it, it depends on momentum, strength, the guy's probably knackered. It feels like Dunk is getting hurt though, and so I'm picturing like punctures about yay big.
Well, the reason why I like this is because if Dunk was wearing plate, a lot of this would kind of be pointless, I guess, is the best way to describe it, right? But because Dunk is specifically wearing mail, a lot of it is actually a good kind of strategy, right? Kind of just a lot of thrusts, which is good. Very deadly.
Okay, so the next sequence is interesting. Dunk grabs Arian's sword after it kind of stopped on the chainmail, throws it away, bashes him again, stumbles down. Arian goes and grabs his sword, it seems like, during this time. Dunk staggers back, and then Arian comes in with a thrust. He spins around, and then he does something very interesting. He throws it. He throws the sword like that, it looks like. It's a sideways, it's either that way or backhand throw like that.
It looks like a backhand like this. Throwing swords is interesting, right? Because there's actually techniques on it, believe it or not, funnily enough. So you can throw a sword. There's a lot of caveats.
Super high risk.
Yeah. But again, if you're that armored, in that sort of situation, are you willing to take that risk? I reckon no.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a good pick in that
But
situation.
again, for the rule of cool.
I mean, if he is that well trained, but if this is literally something he trained, that he is good at throwing swords, it is a technique, and he just is that confident of landing the hit, and he sees the opening, he's like right there into Dunk's leg. Okay, looking closer at that throw, that is a really difficult throw. He literally is like this and turfs it like that. I don't see how you would avoid spinning.
A no-spin technique with a sword from a backhand throw. Do I think that's impossible? No. Just really difficult.
Really hard.
I mean, the thing is, it's such a high-risk strategy because mostly you're just going to probably hit the mail. Even if you do a good throw, it's probably just going to hit the mail and do nothing. So it's just luck that he got him there. I mean, at this point, though, his hands should be obliterated, and he should be dead. Like, he should have bled out about 5 times at this point.
The catching the sword thing, it looks like the blade got caught on the mail and he grabs it just there and kind of tries to pull it off. But again, his hands, you're right, his hands are tatters.
And then he's staggering back with the blade through his leg. At this point, like, he has no blood left to give.
Well, Dunk has been just getting hammered. Arian comes in, grabs the blade out by the actual blade, which you can do with gloves and everything. And there's I forget the exact exchange, but it ends with him doing a crossguard strike right into the visor. Now, it looks like it gets semi-caught on the visor, but it does draw blood somewhere.
Yeah.
And so much so that that really hurts him, and Dunk can't breathe, and that's where he takes off his helmet because maybe he thought he lost an eye or something.
Well, I mean, there are lots of different strikes of using the blade and the crossguard and the pommel.
Holding the sword, like mid-point, and using the crossguard as a weapon, friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
Like, this is actual authentic medieval style techniques and maneuvers being depicted there. So Dunk takes off his helmet, is staggering around, and then he just has to wail. And so he, again, Berserker swings. Arian is blocking with his shield, but is kind of on the back foot. And now, this can be done where there's strikes just to create some distance, push him back. But what it does, it opens up enough where Dunk actually then grabs his sword, half swords, and then swings. This sword is too sharp to handle without gloves. He grabs the sword by the blade, swings it in, hits Arian in the thigh, right there. And it looks like it's the crossguard. And I can't tell if they're trying to show that the blade is what digs in and the crossguard is underneath, or it's the crossguard that actually stabs him in the thigh.
I think either way, they're both perfectly viable.
Very. My only point is the crossguard on a sword is blunt as hell.
Depending on the crossguard.
Depending on the crossguard. You see, like a crossguard like this, it has kind of a point, maybe. Dunk's literally is like a flared flat.
Okay. Yeah, like I can see this happening. I think this is a fair kind of thing.
I think so too. And even if it wasn't a crossguard, this part of the blade is making contact.
As well. Yeah.
As well.
That's why I thought it was a slash.
Yeah, well, it looked like a slash, but when I looked really close, like, oh, the crossguard is actually there.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great hit. In actual fact, it is the most severe hit Arian has taken, and it drops him. His father, Maekar, freaks out, tries to come in and save him, but is getting held off by Lionel and Baylor. And that leads up to what happens to Lionel. But
Baylor.
Sorry, Baylor, yes. Arian is staggering back, and Dunk, this is where Dunk just collapses. Like injury, taking its toll, blood loss.
Well, the thing is, like I said, this particular area, there are a lot of arteries going through your body, and if I think there's an artery in that area, and if you get that, you'll die like very quickly. So like, you're down on the ground, blood loss, you know, you're out of the fight.
Now, Knights, they do train conditioning, okay? They actually even went jogging in armor to condition themselves and stuff. And so Knights can wear armor for extended periods of time if you're trained up for it. But there's a difference between general, like, medium exertion.
Just like existing, right? Versus actual
going all
sustained combat.
Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to bring up is Dunk having one eye closed. Your depth perception
is screwed.
Like, you are...
Could that explain why he's fighting so wildly then? Because I think they've done a good job. He's less trained, but he has some good techniques that he pulls out here and there. But
the problem I have is that it's a bit too much, if that makes sense.
Too much
like
wailing,
one of the strikes he does, he like goes like this.
Yeah.
And Arian's right there for his head, right?
But could that be like he's so knackered that that's all he can manage at that point?
Maybe, but even then you would want to be more tight.
You would.
Anything else. But the depth perception of having one eye basically closed at this point, when you have two eyes, you're not going to be able to hit anything.
You know, like. You will, but you're at a severe disadvantage. Like boxers have done it before, right? You can fight with one eye.
Yeah, yes, but usually they're people who've only had one eye, not two eyes, and then all of a sudden now I only have one.
And I'm actually okay with Dunk's kind of wailing here. He's knackered, he is also untrained, he is injured, and is just using whatever he can in the tank, his full strength.
I agree.
Okay, so Dunk gets up, he kind of does a couple of wild hits, and Arian, either deflects or dodges, and then he gets in a big slash, bang, right here. Knocks him down, and just degenerates into brute force. He rips the shield out of the guy's arm, bashes it down. Not only bashes it, there's one moment that I liked, and we forgot to mention it. It's when earlier on the fight where Dunk catches the guy's armor sword under his arm. That's a full-on beautiful historical technique, valid and everything. And then he gets knocked off, and then just smacks.
Well, okay. I like the bind for the technique, and I like that he goes for kind of a hit. The problem is that it has that stormtrooper effect of Kenobi, where it's like you're wearing a full plate helm and you go,
What?
Somehow that knocks me back.
I like it because it's dunk. If anyone could slap a guy down through a helmet with a gauntleted fist, it's dunk. I can give him that one. Arian is like, half a foot shorter. It's just
The
this
whole
giant
point of armor is to start, is to save you
It
from
didn't
these.
knock him out, but
Yeah, but still.
I think you could.
Anyway.
Okay, he rips the shield off, smashes the shield, the visor gets knocked open, and then with a gauntleted fist starts beating him in the face.
Yeah.
Have you seen what brass knuckles can do to someone's face?
Like that's gonna destroy you.
Oh, that's yeah. And Dunk, he's got it then.
Yeah.
Like that, the guy's face, obviously, they didn't depict it, but it could have been mangled to the point of unrecognizability.
Yeah. So I think all in all, it's really good. I like it.
I
Really
love
great.
it. There are things to, mention about realism here and there, but overall, this is one of the better medieval combats we've seen in a long time.
And any of the sort of like little things where it's like, I don't know about that, you can chalk it all down to either rule of cool or just kind of, fantasy universe type stuff.
Yeah.
Because none of it's like outside of the realm where I'm like, except for maybe the lance.
The lance is
That's like a huge one, because they're human.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
right? The lance is where I'm like, okay, you went too far there.
Yeah.
Same with the sword strike from Raymond. Those are the big ones. And I love that moment where Raymond saves him, but you're not going to knock a guy into the air with a sword. And so those are the two bigger.
Funnily, my ones are more like when he takes swords through his hands multiple times,
And he still uses
has
his hands.
like perfect grip. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's like, yeah, you get.
that's not a strength thing. That's literally the tendons in your fingers wouldn't work.
Yeah.
That's not a strength issue.
Like there is superhuman survivability going for
Yeah.
sure. But for the cinematic epicness of it, I mean, this is heads and shoulders above so much other
It's
stuff.
awesome, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, what do you think? Let us know your favorite moments in the fight scene, and we look forward to reading it. And if you want, check out the video where we, it should be out by now, if not, we test the final death blow of Lionel, no, not Lionel.
Baylor, why do you keep saying that?
I get it mixed up. Cheers, check it out, guys.